Don't get body snatched.
Don't get body snatched.
Or if you do...
If you do get body snatched, this video will help you learn how to be a person, so you should keep watching this on repeat.
We have such sights to show you.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Four Dead Losers podcast. We are the Four Dead Losers. I'm Ramito.
Adam.
Jordan.
Justin.
And today we're going to be talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Wow, how exciting. 1978
yes.
To be exact.
Not the original and not the two other sequel remakes after that.
The remake of the
There's
remake?
four
one in the
movies.
90s.
There's four.
Are they all
movies.
remakes of the original? Like
They're all the same.
They're all the
Basically.
same. They all have the
Yeah.
same way.
We have to
The
remake.
first one doesn't. The first one doesn't.
The first one has a good ending? Oh, is that a spoiler?
I forget.
The black and white one?
But it's not. Yeah, it's not the same.
Alright, cool. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Adam, this was your pick. Not spoiler thoughts. What did you think of the movie?
I thought it was really good. I know it's very easy to sometimes like look at a classic and be like, oh yeah, this is really good because that's what everybody says. But like, it still actually holds up. I think today, like, there's so many like tropes and things with cinematography, the acting, just the overall like setting that it gives is just really nice. Like the whole idea of like paranoia and that setting in like is very apparent from like the beginning, and like the intensive camera work that happens later on in the film. It just I think it really goes well. The acting's good. There wasn't too many negatives for me. So yeah, I think overall I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Rating out of 10?
Ooh, I'm gonna go 9 out of 10.
9 out. That's pretty good.
Very, very minimal.
That's pretty good. Jordan, not spoiler thoughts. What did you think?
I feel pretty much the same way he does. I liked the special effects. I thought the soundtrack was great, especially kind of towards the end, like when you're kind of getting, I guess, the climax of the movie. The cast actually knew how to act, which is, even for newer movies, it's kind of rare sometimes in horror. I thought it aged great. It wasn't, I know we watched Killer Clowns, which is, I think, from the same time period, maybe a little older, but, or newer, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I feel like it didn't age as corny as a lot of the movies.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But overall, I think I agree with basically everything Adam said. I think I'm going to go a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10 as well. Yeah. Wow. Justin, not spoiler thoughts. What did you think of the movie?
I know I said I really liked the movie, but I was lying. I actually didn't like the movie at all.
For real?
No, I'm just lying.
Okay.
It was pretty good.
I'm all bracing.
Yeah. No, it was a pretty good movie. Yeah, I can't really add anything. I think they both covered everything pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. It's a really good movie. I thought it was gonna be really corny. It wasn't. I was surprised.
I was pretty shocked.
I was like, a movie called Invasion of the Body Snatchers by today's standard just sounds really corny.
Because there's a lot of movies that are like classics.
Yeah.
And you go to watch them and you're like,
It sounds
Friday the 13th.
Yeah. So I was surprised. So yeah, everything was pretty good about it. I can't really think of anything that was like bad per se. So yeah.
Rating out of 10?
Probably say like 8 or 9. 9.
9 out of 10 as well. Wow, 3 9s.
Romeo's going to come in with that.
Unfortunately, I don't have the same opinion. But okay, so not spoiler thoughts for myself. I did enjoy the movie, so I'm not on the opposite end of the spectrum. I do feel like it's a little dated, and I would really like to see a remake made today from like somebody else, like maybe Jordan Peele or somebody like that, like somebody who's
maybe Robert.
Wasn't that just like us? Wasn't that just us?
None of
kind of
none of the egg family. I don't want none of the egg family.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, right? Like somebody who like is really good at making these kind of like movies where there's more than the surface level.
I think Jordan Peele would be a good one.
You know what I mean? Huh?
I said I think Jordan Peele would be a
Jordan Peele would be, but you're right. Like he kind of did that with Us.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I thought it was a good movie. Me and older media don't really tend to get along really that well. Not so much because like I think older movies are boring or anything like that. They're just, I guess, not as they're not at the right pacing that I would like, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But rating out of 10 for myself, I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10. like above average, worth my while. I saw it twice. The first time was not too long after we watched Night of the Living Dead, I think, and I think I put it on just to watch it, and I fell asleep. But this time when I watched it, I actually took notes and like paid attention to what was going on, and it was a lot. It was an enjoyable experience. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get to the spoiler section of our videos. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff. It'll really help us out. We'd really appreciate it. But until then, this is gonna be your spoiler warning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Everybody dies.
Dude, I just kept thinking about when Adam was giving his like thoughts. I was just thinking about the bounce on it crazy stuff. I was trying so hard not to laugh.
And that's what you get from the A.
We almost got a perfect 9 out of 10.
It's alright.
That's true.
I wanted to go 9.5, but I.
There's definitely some negatives for me, but
Did you want to get the synopsis, or did you?
I mean, we can kind of just loosely touch it as we go. I mean, I think the biggest thing from the get-go, and we had talked about it, I think, a little bit before we started recording. While it is an older movie, I think the opening scene is really cool because it really sets like the idea of like there was thought put into it in terms of like just overall good special effects or effects in general. I don't know how special they are, but like the idea that you see you're in space on a planet or what we perceive as a planet.
Yeah.
And we start seeing these almost jellyfish-like creatures floating above to the surface from a gust of wind. And like, I think one thing, and I'm sure you'll talk about it a little bit, is I thought that the soundtrack is really nice and it fits with the movie really well. It really intensifies when it needs to. It sets the tone of like there's some uneasiness feeling in a lot of moments to really set up like, hey, these are some not so okay things happening at the moment. But you see those little creatures, if you will, float from space and they make their way to Earth and they crash land and they land on assuming plants and there starts raining and they kind of start latching onto the plants and even the effects here.
Oh yeah,
I thought really cool.
Really,
it looked really good.
Essentially like veins growing on the
leaves.
I'm assuming these are all practical because of the time.
Yeah, and I'm sure like almost like stop motion because like they like the way it's like kind of like it has some pitches in it, but it's still looks
good. It was really
I think movies from that time period sometimes, like this is an example where like it benefits from not having access to CGI or anything because they had to like use creativity and stuff.
And it was good. I thought, and I think that
it looked great.
Yeah, it looked realistic. Like I think that's the thing. It looked actually very practical, so that was kind of cool. And it immediately sets it up with like these people like, oh, let me pick these flowers. So what ends up happening is they start blooming into these pods. Like you just see this purple pod kind of like bloom out of the flower. So it's essentially like something that's gonna open up. And they start picking at them. The main character Elizabeth picks one.
They look like flowers.
And then another like a group of like school children come by and they start picking them. And the teacher's like, "Go ahead and take these home to your parents." So the plague was completely started by Elizabeth and these school children. But you know what's funny? We don't know for sure that was like the first set of pods there because. You know, later on as we get into the film, we find that like they take over pretty fast, so we don't know if it's centrally started here and then expanded or at least hit other places earlier. But what was interesting, and I thought it was funny because my Tubi, which is what I think we all watched on, froze. Watching it, it froze because my internet was acting weird with my TV, and it froze right on the first like shot of the priest randomly swinging on his swing, and he's just looking. He's like staring. And what's interesting is that I think this sets it up for the first like what is to come of the movie because he like dead stares them. Like he just kind of like staring at them like. I don't know, like almost like
he has to be one of them.
And he dead stares them, and then he even does his point of view. From like him watching them walk away with the flowers and stuff, and he could have been. I think, and I think that was.
I thought it was. That makes sense.
This is the first time I saw the movie, but I looked on Reddit like to see what people were saying about it beforehand.
Yeah,
and that's what a lot of people had mentioned that like after watching it, you realize from like the beginning that
it was
they're kind of cooked. Yeah,
right. Well,
so,
not even that.
Looking back on that, it's like I was paying attention to little characters here and there who like kind of looked off, or like, because they even showed his point of view on purpose, and he's like watching.
And he's watching them, and so I think that's, in my opinion, where I almost feel like, again, once you know what's happening in the movie, like they're becoming, like they're trying to adapt, like they're trying to learn, they're trying to get information so that they can thrive on this planet, right? And so, I mean, it's in the title, right? So everybody kind of knows what it is. The movie had come out previously and way earlier, obviously. So it was kind of like they gave away, all right, here are the aliens, like here's what's happening. Like they're coming from the flowers, you know exactly. There's nothing, no slow burn of trying to figure out how. It's just a matter of like, what are you going to do? Homie takes it to her apartment or condo, whatever you want to call it, townhouse, and she puts the plant in water. We see her boyfriend Jeffrey, and he's watching the basketball game, but he has like headphones on, like he's watching it.
That was like a thing, wasn't
like
it?
he's watching it like an iPad kid, but like TV, like a TV far away, and she's trying to like talk to him about all this stuff, and he just doesn't want to really give her the time of day. But she starts talking about like the plants and how she thought it was interesting because there is a term, and I think maybe you might have it written down. I forgot the name that she called it. But essentially, she talked about a certain type of plant when two spores or spawns like morph together, they make a completely new plant. And so that's what she assumed that this thing was. It was like, oh yeah, this thing. Okay, but there's like as a term for it. So we find out like she is a scientist. Yeah, it's like a hybrid. She is a scientist, and obviously you can tell flowers are her specialty, or like that just seems to be like something she just knows a lot about.
She even mentions like how quick the plant is rooting.
And she even talks about like it thrives on like, you know, just it easily thrives on anything. So and I think at this point Jeffrey has his headphones off. I think he just can't tell if he showered. I think he had already showered. He was wearing his robe or whatever. And again, he was just kind of like not as interested, but he did talk about, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the playoff game tomorrow. We got basketball. Like he's excited, and from there. We also get introduced at some point. I can't remember the exact like in order, but we also get introduced to the other main character, which is Matthew, played by is it Donald Sutherland? Is that the name? I think. Great actor, and he is the health inspector investigating I'm assuming up in fancy French restaurant. And he believes that Ratatouille is in the kitchen because he's inspecting the food and he's asking for the ingredients. They don't want to give it to him, but he's like, hey, you can't hide anything from the health inspector. Like, you need to tell me what's in here. And so they tell him all this stuff, and he ends up saying, like, oh, okay, then what is this? And it basically, he picks up with the tweezers like a little rat poop. And they're like, oh no, that's the caper. And like they're like, no, it's rat poop.
What is it? Caper?
It's like a I don't even know.
I think it's an herb.
Is it rat poop?
Is that just what a fancy word for rat poop?
So yeah, so he basically like is fighting this guy on it, and then he goes in further and is investigating. It almost looks like they're like a rice container almost, but it's like in a giant thing, and he's like scooping through it with a purple light. And I thought this was really cool with the lighting because you see this purple light used later with the plant in the next scene when they start going to sleep, and they have the light on the plant and right next to Jeffrey. So basically they get mad at him because he's like, hey, I found this rat poop, I'm shutting you down. Or not shutting you down, but I'm going to revoke something. And the cooks are angry, right? They're like, man, go do something. Like he nods, right? He kind of gives the head nod like, hey, you need to do something about this. So I think they like smash his window with a bottle of wine, and he just kind of like gets in the car, doesn't even notice it until he gets in, and then he just sees those guys, and they're just like, and he just accepts it and drives
he's
off.
just like, oh, I guess just a normal day as a health inspector. Smash window.
And so he drives away. He gets to his workplace, and he calls Elizabeth, right?
Yeah, how do they know each other? Do we know?
They're working in the same lab. They're co-workers. She also works for the health department in another scientific capacity.
I assume the way that I understand it is that he's a field person, so he goes out and then she analyzes.
He's the inspector. He's the inspector. And so he's talking to her about how they messed up his thing, whatever. He even throws a jab, right? Like, oh, cheap wine, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then what ends up happening is she basically starts going to bed. Jeffrey's already in bed. That dude's knocked out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's knocked out really quick for a dentist. I don't know. He must be working hard. But he goes to sleep, or she's asleep. She gets in bed. We see the plant, and she hugs him. And this is the only real time we really, I think one of the 2 times we see him like actually embrace her, because at first he's cold, right? He has the headphones, doesn't really care for her. But like he hugs him and he grabs her arm and like is obviously affectionate with her. Like okay, they're good. And the shot with the purple light on the plant basically focuses in on the plant. They kind of start blackening out the edges, but what I think is really cool is the light extends to Jeffrey. So like Jeffrey is within the aura almost of the plant, and we all know that like, okay, the plant is this invasive species or whatever.
It's the body snatcher.
Yeah. The body snatcher, and then it keeps on fading, the purple kind of intensifies, and then bing, we get the alarm, freaks out, oh my gosh. Turns out Jeffrey's already awake, and he's already bent over sweeping up something. And I thought it was interesting because he didn't turn off the alarm. Like he sat there, so I think
wake her up,
he didn't wake her up already in a full suit. But like it was interesting because he just kind of stared at it. Like when she touched it, he was just looking at it. So he, assuming that we didn't know at the point he was abducted or absorbed or whatever, but he, like, you can tell something's off. And so from there, we just kind of start the movie with
because then he takes the trash can out to the
I thought that was gonna be like a thing. I guess they weren't, because there's a lot of trash like things in the movie.
No, there is.
It is.
That's
right?
how they dispose. That's them disposing.
They did not work the way I thought they were.
And
I
so
thought they like went in their body and took over.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's what I thought.
Which is nice that they
you
did
get
the
the
way they did.
Goldblum scene.
But I did enjoy, like you're saying, this was kind of the scene that sets up everything else, which is again she notices that something is off with Jeffrey. Because he goes downstairs, dumps the trash from a trash man that doesn't even have a uniform. He's wearing like a bucket fishing hat and like khakis.
And
like,
he didn't say like a word to her.
No, they don't.
He just
He's just like, she's like, how long you been up? He's just like, oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Like he's very blunt, very cold, and he walks down in full suit and dumps the trash and just watch the trash truck like take off. But yeah, and then from there, like you're saying, they just basically gaslight the movie. Everybody thinks that is getting paranoid, and there's a lot of people that are like, no, you're crazy, and then they're not crazy, and then by that point it's too late.
It's too late. So what do you mean that like is that how they dispose of the bodies or?
Yeah. So okay. So I think as you get into the movie, you see that. I think the idea is that the pods create, so these things that bloom, they turn into big ugly pods.
Yeah.
And you see later on in the movie, what ends up happening is these pods have these like almost, they're roots, but they're like tendrils, almost, they almost look like spider webs at first with how they move.
Yeah.
And so they connect into the people's bodies as they're sleeping, and it essentially drains them. Like it essentially, what they do is they drain the fluid and the consciousness over to the pod. So like you were saying, it's not actually snatching their body.
It's
They're
like a
creating
clone.
They're creating an entire clone body of them, and taking everything from them and draining them dry to the point to where they essentially like peel, decay, dry out, and then they just turn into dust.
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing, you don't catch it the first time you watch it, but the more you watch it, as the trucks later come out, the garbage truck, you notice there's really no trash. It's almost like dust and bunnies, like a vacuum, like they dump vacuum, it's lint. And every time they crush it, they're just poofs of dust. So they're draining them of their fluids, and they basically dry out, and that's what Jeffrey was sweeping, so... them.
I thought he was sweeping the plant. I thought he like broke the plant.
The plant broke, or the glass was
The glass didn't break too, but I think
he came out of the.
He was also the dust. It did, like, because if you notice, they flake up whenever you and you get dry. Like Jeff Goldblum's lips were chapping and starting to crack.
The other ones.
He was nose was bleeding. So again, nosebleeds typically when you're getting dried out in your sinuses. So it's like drying them out.
That.
Yeah. Just like drains you.
I know, and then like even throughout the movie, we get a lot of it's like one person realizes their partner, whether it's their husband, wife, whatever, is acting weird.
Yeah.
And then the main psychiatrist guy, I don't know his name.
Spock.
Well, it's hold
He's
on.
Spock.
Kibner, yeah.
I think so.
David? Question mark.
David. That's his first name.
But he's over here telling him like, these people are crazy, basically. Like there's something going around, but then
and he's the master body snatcher.
And he's like a few days later, they're completely fine, and we find out later it's because like the partner gets rid of the other one. Like it's
Yeah,
this
it's
whole.
good.
Yeah, one
Snatch.
partner gets snatched and then the other partner snatches them. Like,
My guy
Nobody-
sold his tickets to the Lakers game, bro. I think
There's like a scene too that we get at towards the beginning of the movie, right, where Matthew goes to a dry cleaner's
Oh yeah.
and he gives his suit to like the woman who owns it, and then her husband calls him to the back and he's like, "That's not my wife."
well, yeah, he's like, "You're a doctor." He's like, "No, I work for the health. I'm a health inspector."
So that's not my wife. But then we see them again later on in the movie, and it's flipped. He gets the dry cleaning or whatever, but the husband now is like,
My
"No,
wife-
my wife's
fine,
good.
yeah.
Everything's fine." Yeah. So
And you see that constantly a little bit throughout the
Yeah.
movie too.
Uh-huh.
They're just like, oh yeah, they're like,
even the when they're at the party for
Yeah.
David's book signing,
Mhm.
like there's a woman there saying that her husband is different, but then later on we
Same
see
thing.
them. Yeah.
that man was giving mad like, what are they called? Televangelists.
Television. I mean, he was.
He said, "No, just go to him. He's right here."
Yeah.
Bro, what?
Well, and what was interesting is from the priest. I think again that's you can debate it whether or not you think he's a body snatcher, but it's pretty apparent when he's just deadpan and staring
Yeah.
at them that he probably is. Even from the opening time that she first goes into the health inspector's office, it is apparent that there's already people there. Like there's the guy
Yes.
at the front door that
Yes,
is
you're
watching.
right.
and
I forgot
somebody
about
through
that.
the door.
Yeah, like the guy
Wow.
literally sitting at the door, and as soon as she walks in, then he decides to go in. There's the
Well, there's another one where
Isn't that a
Matthew is
janitor?
like, yes,
The
we're like,
janitor,
well,
yeah.
there's
That's
something
later.
else
That's a little later. Yeah.
where Matthew is like walking down a hall and he's
And the
having a
guy's
conversation with
Another
Elizabeth, I
doctor.
think.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a guy like this
In
just
the
looking
window.
at him
Oh, I
through
never
the
noticed
window.
that.
Or they
And
do
he-
like the first person point of view and like make eye contact with somebody, and the other person's like kind of deadpanning.
Yeah. Well, and even then too, like, and then, but if you go back, almost every scene you can catch at least 3 or 4 people that are body snatchers. Like even in that hallway scene before they get to the dude in the window, the dudes at the door that they come through look at each other and then look at them and then go through the doors. Like they almost are like, again, they're assessing and they're communicating
Yeah.
and then they disperse and do their thing, which I thought. Again, watching it a second time, I started catching it more, and I think that's a,
Cool.
a big
Yeah.
pro. You know, again, I'm gonna
It's just like stuff that
I have to do it every time, but this is my hate against A24 part. But like, I really think seriously, like the way that they did it, this is well done. Like it's not even that it's because it's not subtle, but like when you watch it the first time, you don't notice it as much, but it is on par with the theme. It's not just
Yeah.
we're doing these things because we have to. They do them because like no, that is the story. That is the whole idea that like there is something going on, and if you'll pay attention, you'll notice that it's already too late, like you're saying. And by the time it
Throughout
got
the
to
whole-
Jeffrey, I think there was no winning. Like there was no way that they could get out of this. So
Yeah.
But yeah, that I even just in that opening one, it's pretty apparent there.
It's like a Jordan Peele movie, right?
Yeah.
Where he puts everything in for a reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's done well,
But it's
and there's a good ending. Like it's an
that
actual.
wasn't a good ending.
No, it's a
Oh.
good ending. It's not.
Oh,
just-
I know what you mean.
It's not
good,
just-
good, not.
No, it's
Tell
not.
them how it ends.
I was gonna say what?
There's a cult. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, essentially. No, you want to give the ending now? Or?
I mean, if you want.
Oh,
We're kind of jumping around.
Yeah.
honestly, so we can
just
give
point
it.
out
We can give it.
before that. I think the main scene we really like realize they're cooked is when like they're chasing that guy through the streets.
Yes.
Oh,
And Matthew's
okay.
like,
That was creepy.
oh, the cops will save him or whatever. And then-
Yeah. So as the movie goes on, we get introduced to more characters. So our main 2, which is Elizabeth and Matthew, then turn into 4
they love each
or
other. by the
5.
way.
Yeah,
Just-
they-
well, it's really just
All they do
four.
is
It's
love
Jack.
each
It's
other.
Jack and then Nancy.
his wife. Yeah, Nancy.
They
So
love each
Jack
other,
played by
they do.
Jeff Goldblum, and then Nancy is his wife.
What was his relation to like them at all? I don't even.
I think
Jack's
they
just
were
a friend.
friends.
He's
They're
just a friend.
Like friends. They're
I
just
think
like,
so.
He was like, oh, I'm gonna be at the book signing too. He's just like,
Yeah,
I think he writes
because
too.
Jack.
Yeah, Jack
yes.
writes too, but he's not very good.
He's not
like
very
salty
good,
about
and
it.
he's very salty about David's book.
That's
He's
what
there to
I
be a hater.
He's like he writes a book every 30 days, and I'm over here. I'm stuck on one sentence.
He was like, because I choose my words carefully.
And he goes to mud saunas.
Yeah.
No, they work there. I thought that was the wife.
I mean, I know, but he goes to mud
He
saunas.
goes to mud saunas.
So they become what are they? Oh, your favorite movie, Scream. They become the core 4.
Yeah, core 4.
Yeah.
Four.
And so the four of them are like the only ones that haven't been snatched right out of everybody else in the city. And so they decide to bunk up in like Matthew's house or Elizabeth, one of their houses.
Matthew's house.
And there's a scene where they all start to fall asleep, just like Adam was saying. And then as they're falling asleep, we see these pods come in, and then they like the spider web, whatever, starts to get on Jeff. And then they start making, like they start forming
the bodies.
Yeah. And then they start running away. Jeff wakes everybody up, realizes, not Jeff, sorry.
Matthew.
Matthew wakes everybody up, realizes what's going on. They all start running. Matthew stays and smashes his clone, but keeps everybody else there.
Yeah.
And then takes off after them.
I think he's just like, I don't know.
I think he reacted because he saw them, didn't know what to do, but then when he saw himself, he realized,
Yeah.
like, I need to do
So I
something.
thought he was gonna smash somebody else first.
Which comes into one of the pros that I have about the movie, which we'll get into in a little bit. So now we're at like the very tail end of the movie. Everybody in the city, aside from our core four, are essentially body snatched.
Mhm.
all going after them.
Yeah, they're all running
That's
after
crazy.
them. They're running through the streets, and
Yeah.
everybody's like doing these screams and like, ah.
Yeah.
And they're chased down to
The
what's
docks.
like. Well, at first they're at an alley because then because Jeff Goldblum's character is like, "Hey, keep running, I'll distract them," and he
I think
takes
they're still
off.
were like
here.
at a
They're
dock,
still
they were
on
like
the
at a
dock
dock.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, they keep on they always end up back on the dock.
Okay, so then he takes off, and then Nancy, being like, "No, you can't leave me with them," takes off with him, and then so now we're just with Elizabeth and Matthew. They arrive at the docks, and then
Just start making out
kind
for
of.
no reason.
There's like a
No,
there's like a greenhouse kind of warehouse thing where Matthew scouts ahead. He sees that there's all like the pods is where they're growing.
That's
Oh,
where they
yeah,
see
yes,
them.
yes.
Did he see them getting on the buses yet? Or they're like this?
I think
That
that's
would've been
later.
Before.
That might have been
Oh.
later. Well, because there's two times. Remember, this the first time when they first encounter it, because they end up getting back to that area again a second time for the actual finale. Because remember, they do end up going to the health lab one
You're
more
right,
time.
you're
They
right,
go to
you're
the health lab one more time. So I think to kind of keep it going was they end up escaping. Okay, they get to the health lab and they try to hide out there. They're like, okay, like we need to lay low, whatever, it's safe. And then come to find out there's somebody that keeps on calling them, that like is constantly like ringing. So I think she says like, I know they know we're here.
Yeah.
And eventually
I like
we
that.
find that Jeffrey, the boyfriend, the doctor, which is Spock, David,
Yeah,
and then Jack. They got Jack. Storm in with a bunch of other people. They basically
Inject them with sleeping fluid.
Yeah.
sleeping fluid to talk them down and try to basically put them to sleep, essentially.
That's crazy how they stayed awake for so long through all of that. I was
Yeah,
like,
I mean, adrenaline, man, adrenaline's crazy.
Yeah, but
well,
for
but no,
like-
but they took drugs from the
after like 48 hours though.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then what's her face ran in heels the whole movie. I was like, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's like the Jurassic World, the main character who's the girl, she does the entire movie in heels.
It's like
She does,
that's the
yeah.
most unrealistic part.
Right? Not the dinosaur.
There's not the dinosaurs, not the body snatchers. The fact that someone can run in heels for 48 hours.
It's crazy.
So they get injected with sleeping fluid. They end up like escaping.
Yeah,
right,
they
or
put
Put
the
something.
Spock in the freezer or whatever.
Yeah, they do.
They kill Jack.
They
That's when they
kill
run
the
into what's her name?
Nancy.
Asking him
Which
for
was
That
a
was a
good-
good scene.
that was a good scene.
Because I like scenes like that where it's like, oh, you don't know.
awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she starts crying.
Yeah,
It gives away that like, because at first they hit her and was like kind of blank, right? And
Yeah.
then she's like starts crying because we don't know. Oh no, is she one of them? Are they caught? And luckily she's still alive. And then I think that's when she gives away not the full secret, but essentially Nancy figured out if you just show no emotion, they won't.
You can blend
yeah,
in.
you can blend in. You won't
Yeah.
give yourself away.
Because they're like, how did you survive when she was
Yeah.
suffering
Yeah.
so long?
Which they did. That's what did them in the first time, was that they were trying to like hustle, but you could tell they were stressed. And so like they kept on showing what was cool, like their feet. It would see their feet moving, and then the mob, like 5 or 6 people behind them, and they were keeping up the same pace. And then when they started picking up speed, they started picking up speed. So it was like, yeah, they're trying to figure out whether or not it's them, and then of course they gave it away.
So now it's only them 3 left at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, at this
And
point.
then I don't remember how Nancy gets away.
She gets a okay. So after this or before this?
Yes.
Okay, so before she just said, Jack and I got lost from Jack. Like, we got lost. And then I think at one point she's like, we need to find Jack, and they just ignore her. It's like, no, we don't need to find Jack.
No, they go together. I think they're trying to blend in.
No, they do. No, they
Yeah.
do.
And then the dog man comes.
The dog
And then
man.
it spooks them, but she still blend in.
Yeah. She
Okay.
just, her thing is she blends in and she knows not how to give it away. And the other con is Elizabeth always gives them away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, Elizabeth's the real villain of this story.
Yeah.
Biggest liability.
So they end up back at the dock. This is where they see the warehouse that has all the pods and stuff like that. Matthew goes to scout ahead. When he comes back, Elizabeth is asleep, and then she gets body snatched. We see
That's the first time we see like the
whole process.
live
The whole
person, like,
process.
disintegrate. And
Well,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. I mean, we do see most of the process before the disintegration at the house that you were talking about, like what you started with.
Yeah.
They injected Matthew, and he was getting drained because you can see
Yeah.
the
You can see it on their
flakes.
face.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
flakes start happening, and the pods not only released him, but the other two as well. So it was
Mhm.
kind of interesting. And I mean, we already knew ahead of time, anyways. But gave away that Leonard Nimoy was definitely one because they didn't have the pods, but they had done it before too. Since got in the car with Jeffrey and them, is like, we need to move now. We need to.
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that was it. Yeah, that's when we find out that he's one of them when he gets in the car.
One
He
of
literally
them,
was like
yes.
just talking to them about
Yeah.
stuff, and then whatever.
So then Matthew causes a bunch of chaos, and then of course they go to the body snatchers try to find him, and then like there's a scene where he's like under like the dock or something like that, and there's like a flashlight that's kind of shining on him. We don't really know if they catch him or not. And then it's the next day.
Because the guy tells him
Yeah.
like you can't stay awake forever. And then
Yeah.
it just goes to the next day.
Yeah, and then it's the next day, and the next day we see Matthew. He's walking to like a Capitol building or something.
No, it's a Capitol building, but it's essentially the health. That's where the
I
health.
think
is
he's back
located.
at his job.
It's his
Yeah.
job.
okay.
He just happens to walk that way because they've gone through that area a few times in the movie, and you can see it through his window when he's making the phone calls from the office.
Oh, okay. And then Nancy approaches him and he's like, "Oh, Matthew, I made it! And then he points at her and does the scream. He was
The
body
iconic
snatched.
Body
shit. Yeah, he does like a
starts
slow
crying.
turn too, right? Because
Yeah.
she's like, "Hey, hey."
And there's like a little moment there too where you're like,
not
Is he-
sure.
Yeah.
where you're not sure.
It was
Oh
good.
yeah, and
It was
wait
good,
till
yeah.
until
Yeah,
she,
because
like,
he turns
confronts
and
him.
he like kind of looks at her and then does the.
It's funny because like I was confused. I was like, wait, did he get like you said? We
Yeah.
don't know if he got snatched or not until that
That's
moment.
yeah.
Mhm.
And we got the final girl. Well, until after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty much the movie. Adam, what are some pros?
Pros for me, let me see. Again, I thought the cinematography went well. I thought the score was really good with the music. The acting was really well done. And I don't know, like I just love how they portrayed paranoia and that I forget the term, but like being the other, I think is what people call, like you're the outsider, right? You're the one person that's not in the know while everybody else knows something. And so that's the feeling that they really wanted to impress on everyone from the get-go once Elizabeth kind of started figuring that there's something not right, from the people that are having side conversations in the background to people staring to people, the mobs moving together. And then the scene that you were talking about where Matthew and Elizabeth see a guy getting chased. He jumps on the car and is like, they're coming for us, like you're not safe, they're gonna come after you next. And he runs and he's getting chased by like, I'm about to say like 12, 13
Like a
people,
mob.
like a mob.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, he's like, oh, I think maybe he did something. They're just going after him, right? And then he essentially gets hit, I think, by a car. Like, a car hits him.
Yeah, I
and
think we hear like
screeching, yeah.
screeching.
And when they see it and they're passing by in the car, they see that the crowd is basically encroached around him, but there's
Mhm.
no emotion, there's no reaction. It's just they're seeing him and just like taking in that this person is on the ground and he got hit by a car. And even the driver comes out and I think is like deadpan. He also, a part of that mob mentality, is trying to verify that like the person that they took out was taken out.
Yeah, it's almost like they have some kind of like telepathy or
I
something.
thought it was
that
like
they
I think they were
communicate
like a hive mind.
with. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it is a hive mind, but because of the thing somebody pointed out too is like they organize so fast.
Yeah.
So we don't know how long they were there. They could have been a while, but they also organize efficiently. Like what we see at the end is them in single file lines.
Mhm.
They're sorted in numbers. They're basically getting pods to be dispersed to the rest of the world, to different cities.
Mhm.
So I have to imagine certain points of the world had got hit harder than others,
Mhm.
but there's still areas that need to be taken over,
Yeah.
and so they're the part of it. And I think even at one point in the final scene, there's people that got bused to San Francisco, and they're just getting there because I think the teacher's like telling the kid, "All right, it's time for nap." And he's like,
yeah.
and he's like, "It's not nap time yet. I don't want to go to sleep. What I have to go to sleep?" And I'm just like, "Oh no!"
Even at the
Body
warehouse, at the very end of the movie, they're putting the pods onto a shipping boat.
Yeah.
To be shipped.
And that was kind of one of the big things too. There was like that last kind of final like hope right there that they could get away, and then you see that they're actually being
that there's more. Yeah.
So it's like no matter where you go, you can't really.
Okay, there's like this grand song playing. When
Oh,
the
it's
ship
Amazing
comes out.
Grace, right? I think it's Amazing.
Oh, maybe. And then he gets there and it like cuts out because he sees what's going on.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know why they were playing that song, but yeah.
I also forget it was like a different time back then. Like in my mind, I'm thinking, if it happened here, how would the news not spread? But like,
Yeah.
you know, get on Twitter. And,
Well,
like,
true.
Well, that was the thing too, though. Like, they would cut off all like news. That was the thing. There was a point where Jeff Goldblum was trying to look for the news, like any form of news communication. It was all just cut off.
Wow.
So even then, let's say even in this time, there probably would be no.
They're controlling everything.
Yeah.
True.
They would shut down Twitter. So nobody would.
That's crazy.
And that's how you know. That's how you know. They would shut
keep-
down TikTok. And that's how you know everything.
They would keep Facebook up.
Yeah.
Like, fake news, this is real.
It's AI, bro.
It's AI.
It's AI.
That's funny.
Right. But I think the revolving theme still revolves around like just the idea of paranoia and like again the I would say I'll let y'all go, but I'll just throw out there one of my favorite scenes about that was the telephone scene where he's in the glass box constantly trying to get a hold of people.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh,
they keep
yeah.
on shifting it to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, and like at one point, like, oh yeah, we're gonna listen to you. Well, you know, don't tell anybody. Like, keep it on the down low. We don't want anybody to know. And then like the same thing to the next person. And eventually somebody was like, well, did you even see anything? We don't think you have proof. You better not be spouting this off when you don't even have proof that this doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
they are delaying him, you know, or like giving him the idea to like, oh yeah, you're gonna eventually get help until there's no way that anybody could even help him.
I think one of the final straws is like, I don't know if it's the police or who he calls, but he like, the phone picks up and they're like, we're sending people your way, Matthew.
Yeah.
And, like,
He's
it's
like,
like,
how do you know who we are?
Yeah.
How do you know my name?
I don't know what I-
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan, what are some pros?
Overall, I agree with everything he said. I think it's a super unique take on like, it doesn't fall into the classic horror tropes. Like, throughout the entire movie, it's kind of based on the tension and like this unsettling feeling. Overall, I think the biggest pro for me is that, at least from my perspective, it feels like you can tell that the people who made the movie actually care about the movie.
Yeah.
Like talking about the little things you might see on second watch, or like the little things put here and there. It's clear that like even beyond the surface level, there's other underlying things and stuff that you catch on to. But I feel like we've touched on a lot of my pros from like the cast and practical effects and stuff.
Yeah, that's fine.
Overall, I think a lot of it is pro.
All right.
I'm happy with it.
Cool. Justin?
I don't know if it's necessarily a pro of like this movie in general, but I'm just a really big fan of just like tragic stories. I wouldn't say tragic stories, but I guess yeah, you can consider it like a tragic story.
Yeah.
So I've always been a really big fan of these types of movies where there's just like this impending sense of doom, and you're just trying to see how it all plays out at the end. Like if maybe there's actually like some hope for them at the end, because there's been a lot of movies where like something happens and like there's like a quick turnaround and like they end up being able to fight back.
I'm kind of glad it doesn't have that.
I agree. That's what I'm saying, and I like that. Like it, But the whole time you're kind of wondering, like, is this the turning point? Is this like when they actually when like he was started burning everything down? You were like, well, at least to me, I was like, oh, this is it. This is how they the movie gets its happy
like
ending.
they're gonna
right?
escape. Right?
Yeah, and then like you don't, and
It just
like
turns into, like,
it just
a complete-
constantly keeps going into like this downfall and
Even
just
till
keeps
the end,
spiraling,
yeah.
even to the very end. Like there's no there's no hope. Everybody gets turned, and that's just it. That's the tragedy of the whole movie, and I think they portrayed that really well in this movie. Again, I don't know. I've never seen the original one, so I don't know if it's I'm pretty sure it's the exact same premise, but I don't know how it's executed. But I think they did a really good job of executing this one in that sense. They portrayed everything really well, and again, it's just those types of stories that I really find like intriguing.
Yeah.
So that's probably my biggest pro. I just really like the story of it. I like the whole sense of like the themes that they had. Again, how he says the theme of paranoia and just all these underlying, themes.
Yeah.
So
He said The Mist was his favorite ending.
I actually do like that movie. I do like that. I like the ending too.
One that has a really bleak ending is Speak No Evil.
With Kane?
No.
No, see no evil.
Oh.
Man, that movie good.
All the no evils.
So Speak No Evil is the one that Blumhouse got a hold of and remade as an American version, and it came out back in September.
Oh, you're talking about the
2024.
one.
Did you ever watch that version?
No, I haven't
watched
seen
the new
that. I haven't seen that
The
one.
one with the dude that plays Venom, Hardy, right?
Jeff Hardy?
No.
No.
Yeah, not Hardy.
No.
No.
Ed Hardy?
No. I'm sorry. No, the guy that plays Professor X. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's the American version. So
Patrick Stewart?
No, wrong one.
Wrong Professor X.
Wrong timeline.
So they have it on Shudder. The original one. I think
What's
it's a
the original?
Danish film. It's called Speak No Evil.
I think I've heard of that actually.
Yeah, and it's a good movie.
The original,
Yes,
not the remake.
I haven't seen the remake.
The remake's
Probably-
good,
probably-
but the end completely different.
I was
Yeah,
saying.
so from what I understand, like, because I think the runtimes are both like an hour and a half,
Okay.
and so like the first hour of both movies is the exact same, but it's the last 30 minutes that are different.
Mm.
And so the Danish or Swedish, I can't remember. It's a European film, but it's all in English. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
subtitles or anything. But that one it's really good, and the ending is like really devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah, they change it in the American one because apparently Blumhouse just can't have a bleak ending.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
the American one has like the cliche.
Have they not?
Yeah.
We got
Have
out.
Blumhouse not had a bleak ending?
I mean, if they do, it's
Wolfman.
if they do have a
Well,
bleak-
recently, like recently. they
Well,
have
I
it.
would say if it has a bleak ending, it doesn't hit you as hard as like There's
Get
some
away.
movies when you watch it and you just kind of like feel like, oh man, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
There's like
Speak
that.
Sinister. Bro, Sinister, when I first got left the movie. I was
What?
like,
Infinity War?
Yeah.
Bro, I got up in the video where I was like,
Like half the people die. Yeah.
we knew it was going to happen. What do you mean?
That's true.
Yeah, I
But
don't
I
read
mean,
the
you knew,
comics.
but you know they're gonna come back, and it's like
See,
that's not really like a true bleak ending.
Imagine,
Yeah.
honestly, we might have been better off if Thanos won and then the MCU was over.
I would have been like,
What-
oh,
I think everybody would have just been like, yeah.
they would have got mad. They would have boycotted Disney.
Boycotted
They would have been like, bring back Spider-Man.
So I had heard that. So originally, I didn't watch the original either, and I know the ending is different slightly. But I heard it was actually up to the lead actor which way he wanted to go, and they didn't actually tell the actress Nancy what the ending was. So in her mind, she thought, okay, it's probably gonna be a happy ending. So I don't think she even knew that there was even an option that it may be a bad ending.
Yeah.
So
That's
so
pretty
whenever
That's really good.
whenever he did the slow turnaround and she did the reaction, like that was all like, I mean, that was
That's cool.
that was
That's
cool,
really
yeah.
cool.
And I think they had said even like the actual people, the producers and stuff, didn't even know either. Like the people, the executives, like didn't know how it was gonna end.
He made the right choice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they kind of like kept it as tight under wraps as possible. So it was kind of like an interesting ending. That's
It's like
Yeah.
the
going
long
that
legs
way.
thing all over again.
Let me in now. So pros for myself. I really like how this movie is not surface level. Like it's a lot deeper than we,
But it can be, I think, palented as still surface level.
Yeah,
Like,
you
Like
can-
it
you
really
can
is,
understand.
it goes both ways.
and
Yeah.
now on the nose to be like, this is what's happening.
So there's two really big themes that I saw in the movie. The first one is that it really, just like you were saying, it really deals a lot with like, or kind of bouncing off what you were saying. Sorry, it deals a lot with like loss of personal identity, and that's why like I saw, or the reason why I wanted to point out that Matthew goes back and only destroys his clone is because it's like him losing himself
Yeah.
to society, right? Bring out the Joker face. We live in a society. But like it's just like loss of self-expression and being oneself in order to fit in with what everybody else is
conformity.
doing.
I think
You say
yes,
conformity.
that's
Conformity, yes, yeah. Another theme that I saw in the movie that actually I didn't think about until we started filming was it's very, I feel like it's really heavy to show, sorry. I feel like it does a really good job about showing like how invasive species destroy ecosystems.
Yes.
Like when they're introduced or like through they can be introduced in a variety of ways, as far as ecosystems go. But like the point is that they're there and they destroy everything. Like,
and that's just their purpose. It's just to survive and just
that's
exactly
the point of humanity, or the point of life is to survive. It's survival.
It's
that's
one of the quotes
from
the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really,
the purpose of life is survival.
Survival. Yeah, and that really like shows here. So yeah, don't let your pets loose if they get old, because then they become invasive species. And now Florida's ran with the iguanas.
Well, I was gonna say,
Yes.
That's a crazy.
Well, and that was one of the things that they had even brought into, bouncing off back to the ecosystem thing, was
iguanas?
that iguanas. Well, yes, iguanas. But when Elizabeth's going on her tangent about the plants, she talked about how those types of plant species thrive on not desecrated ground, but ground that's like barren ground. Like, so they thrive
they live
on that.
where they're not supposed to.
Yeah, and they actually thrive on it. Like, they grow better from it. I also like the subtle nod too of like, oh, the plants love the music. I think they grow faster, better. They do all this stuff. So like they're
it's a little ironic.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. That was. Well, I caught it now that y'all said that, but that's pretty interesting.
So so when they're at the thing, I think that's why that one is just so rapid in its growth. They show a lot of foliage, a lot of plants in various areas, like even in the spa house, like where the Jeff Goldblum double is. Like, there's a hanging plant. Now, obviously, it's not that plant, but like you can tell there's a lot of different plants around the areas, and they're very particular about their placement. So it's kind of.
I was thinking the opposite. I thought it was ironic because the species itself, they didn't care for anything creative, and they even did things where they were even there's purposefully 2 times where music was playing and they shut it off.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was ironic because she said
and that might be. I think maybe they grow from it and they're like, okay, no, we hate this. But what was the other thing that they had said? And just kind of going back to what you were saying, I think one of the big purposes of the movie too that I think they had said the director had talked about that I've seen was they had used the idea of is humanity worth living or saving if there's no emotion? Without emotion, is humanity there? And so that's the thing right there, telling them this is the Jack and Dr. David, whatever, their spiel when they're putting Matthew and Elizabeth to sleep in the lab, that it's nothing's gonna hurt, you're gonna be absorbed, your consciousness is there, you're gonna live in a perfect society with no basically no negative emotions. But then what the turning point is for them to flip is, but it's also no love, there's no positive emotions either. So you're living a very bland, bleak existence just to survive. And eventually, I'm assuming they would destroy the planet because the planet they came from was desolate and destroyed. They even said that in that monologue.
In the monologue, they say they travel from planet to planet, or actually, I think I wrote it down.
Yeah.
And that's so crazy to think that it's just
but that's alien movies in general. They take over planets, and half the time they're coming from a planet that is not even worth living on anymore. They use the resources and then
makes you wonder if that's a little reflective of the world we live in.
Exactly. So what David says is the quote that he says is, "We come here from a dying world. We drifted from the universe, from planet to planet, pushed on by the solar winds. We adapt and we survive. The function of life is survival." That's what he says.
Function of life is survival.
So to just move the conversation along, do y'all have any cons for the movie?
My only con, and this is an old movie thing, was and I had done this the first time too when I watched the movie, and I was a little kind of peeved, but I don't like the audio sometimes in older movies, and one of the things that killed me was the big chase scene where they're leaving Matthew's apartment to flee from they barricaded around his whole house. They had the police, the fire department, they got everybody, and they're chasing after him and basically breaking into his area. He's like, all right, come on, let's hurry, let's run. But it's so monotone, and the audio mix between his voice and the music and everything that's happening, it just seems very bland. For how intense that scene's supposed to be, it kind of takes me out of it a little bit. And I remember watching it again, and I was just I still feel the same way. That's the only part of the movie I didn't really like. And then you can maybe push on the runtime a little bit. It was a little lengthy. It's about 2 hours of a movie.
Yeah.
But I don't care much for like that. I don't think that runtime isn't necessarily a bad thing for me unless it's too much of a slow burn with no, payoff.
I think I think the pacing was okay for what it was.
Yeah.
For like the time that it came out in, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I really have any cons.
Yeah, I don't have any that stand out to me.
Me,
I do think
nothing.
I think if the right person remade it, I think there's things that can be improved. I think the movie can be remade and end up better. Like I don't think it's completely untouchable.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that stands out like a moment in the movie or like
Yeah.
an aspect of it where I'm like, yeah, that completely. Like,
Yeah,
took
there's
it down a
nothing.
point.
I'd have to nitpick if I really wanted to look for a con. Like I
Yeah.
have to think about
I
it.
do think
That's
so.
fine.
I only watched it once, so like
I only watched
I
it
wouldn't
once,
know. I don't know. Going back because we talked about how many like little details there are here and there. I don't know if there's anything you could cut out, but I will say when we were like 40 minutes into the movie, I looked at the time expecting to be like an hour and 20 minutes into it.
Only 40.
Yeah, like the time from the beginning leading up to when we meet Jack and.
But
Yeah.
that's how movies are. Like, well, back then they were more akin to like reading a novel. They
Yeah.
set up the story, and that's like
Because that is also like the preliminary stuff.
Yes.
And then when you really get into the story, it kind of
and
just.
movies
Yeah.
don't really do that kind of thing anymore.
Yeah.
They're kind of just.
If this
you
was
know,
a modern movie, the beginning would have been part of the end, and then it would have cut back in.
Yeah, it would
They would've showed
started with the turn right, and then it would have cut to the beginning.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know the context of why he was turning.
Yeah, I'm about to say like there's just well done. Like there's a lot of good. There's not a lot to nitpick about unless again older media things. Like I said, my
Yeah.
nitpick was the kind of older, like that audio and that one area was just kind of annoying. But that's when you listen to it, that's just their audio back then in general.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's very like amplified, very present. And sometimes, like, you don't get the full range of, like, the yelling, the screaming, and all that, because I think sometimes it would distort or, like, it didn't come across the
Well,
same
you're
way
watching
that
it through a
was-
TV too. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I do think it
everything has
gives
to be like
yeah.
compressed.
I do
so.
think it gives old movie vibes.
Yeah.
Like here and there, not in a bad way.
I
but
really
you
like,
know.
and I'm pretty sure it was filmed on film, right?
Yeah.
Like I was
Looks like
looking
it.
at it, I was like, I have not. Like, I guess I'm just so used to watching modern movies and how it's like the digital look to it. Like, I really
The
like.
quality looks
Yeah,
really good.
I was like, man, I really wish people filmed.
That's
on
why I
film
love
again.
movies on film.
Yeah, it looks
Now
so
you can
nice.
tell.
Not like when you watch a digital movie, it just looks too clean.
Too
clean.
Like when it looks like a
Like,
Marvel movie.
Yeah, you need to dirty that shit up or something.
As we say, filming on digital.
All right, time to go invest in a film. Get someone to
So
get a man to the start.
That's funny. I only had one con really with the movie, and that's when David is injecting Matthew with the sleep fluid. He tells Matthew that he says you are evolving into another species, but we never see anything with that. Like in my mind, it was like he was turning into a hybrid, because at that point, like the tentacles or whatever had already touched him.
No,
But
I think what he meant
What
was like when he said you're evolving into another species.
when David tells Matthew, "You're evolving into another species,"
He-
like nothing
he-
came from that.
No, I think what he means by that is you're evolving into like a better version of yourself in their eyes.
Yeah,
which is
I
like,
mean-
you know.
Yeah, because to
Yes.
them, they are the perfect species.
Yes,
'cause-
they're exactly like you without all the
Mhm.
and they're the perfect, whatever they said, perfect society, whatever.
I thought they were gonna pull out the substance and like.
I still have to see that movie.
It's great.
I know, it's on my list.
But yeah, so like I said, that was my only thing. Probably like if they would have done like a different dialogue option there instead of
They made him like a plant man instead or something.
like well maybe of like you will evolve into a better species like
Right,
instead
they
of
said it
you're
present
evolving.
tense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Well, you have to remember at that point,
I think it's just a nitpick.
I mean, granted, it was destroyed. We don't know if it had to make a new one or if it just regenerates, but the pod was already made. The idea is when the vessel is there, all they have to do is just
Yeah.
absorb you. So, like, the pod's there. It was the same with Elizabeth. The pod was already
okay.
made. And same
Yeah.
with Jack. Same with, like, the pods are there.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
need to get absorbed.
Yeah, I think they said that with the intent of this is gonna happen like right now.
Yeah.
Like there's not gonna be any delay. Like we're gonna do this exactly. Like
And
remember the pod, like you said, the pods are right there. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a nitpick of words.
Yeah, I guess so. But I didn't write the movie.
Yeah,
I've never done that.
And the first
I've never
time-
read the movie.
Sorry to go back, but I think the first
You're
time I
fine.
see that is like when Goldblum's at the mud spa or whatever, and like first we see the thing like laying down.
Mhm.
Like that's the first. I'm pretty sure that's the first time we see one of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
then Matthew shows up and is like, "How tall are you and how much do you weigh?" Because he
Oh,
realizes
yeah.
they're
He's
like.
starting to
Yeah.
see.
And then Jack lays down, and it's like when his eyes are closed, the other one opens, and then
Yeah.
like vice versa.
Yeah, well, and at that point, it did touch him, like it was pulling from him. So
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
idea too is like they can make these pods of you without the touch quite yet, but then they need to attach to you.
But
to
then once
trade
they
it.
attach to you, it's
Yeah.
kind of over. Like even
Yeah.
if you get away from it, it's you're already.
Well, yeah, well,
Well, I mean, do you think they like got Matthew and dragged him all the way back to?
I think so. I think,
I think
that's
we're-
what I was at debating.
Or what about the girl?
I
What's her
think
name?
I
Elizabeth?
think it's
Yes,
just
'cause he
I think
carried
it's
the
just
body
a,
out.
I think it's just a pod. Like any pod can turn into you. It's not like
That's what I think.
The
it's
second
not.
makes
It's
contact
not.
with
It's
you.
not
Yeah.
like they could, in theory, right? In theory, if 3 of those pods got attached to you, there'd be like 3 Matthews. It's not specific to that
Yeah,
one
see.
pod. It's just
But
whatever
once it
pod
touches
attaches
you,
you. Yes,
do you have
that's
to
when
be-
it starts.
Well, and that I guess
That's
I
what
don't.
it
I guess I don't know
said.
either. Like because what was interesting too was when they David the psychiatrist, they called him in to the mud house. Matthew had already left, and Matthew had seen this body, and it was just Jack and I think his Nancy, and she was freaking out because she's like it opened his eyes, but nobody else saw it. And he goes in to inspect without the other 2 in the room, like they're in the back, I guess, like or in the front, whatever.
He ditched the
And
body.
he ditched the body, and the window was open, and she was
You're
even
right.
like, "Hey, why is the window open?" But then the garbage truck was there with the poof. So
That's
I wonder if it doesn't successfully happen
It
over time.
dissolves.
It just dissolves, which could have been
Probably.
the case
Yeah.
because the truck was there, and I'm like, "Why is the truck?"
And his
there?
goal was also to hide it. So I think you might be
Yeah.
right. Like you're right in that Jack ended up getting a different pod. Like
Yeah.
you can be linked a million times.
Maybe.
Yeah,
basically.
probably.
I guess one of the other things I think going back to like just how well it was put together, I had heard that the director of this one got together with the original director of the first iteration of it and really dove into deep about like talking about the movie and like going through like thoughts and things. And I think that's what really made this movie, like you're saying,
I
had
think it needs
that
to be
like
more of
character,
that.
yeah,
You
like
don't see that
really.
these days.
Yeah, really kind of gave him an investment and really like showcased it very well. I mean, like just even the wording, like like the worker that was like, my wife's wrong, she's wrong, like she's not right, or when Elizabeth sees that stuff's not right, it's like, oh, there's a conspiracy, there's some secret that everybody's doing. Like there's just so much like good dialogue.
I was gonna say, it has a pretty good dialogue.
And they were just like really, really good with that. One thing that not Jeff Goldblum, Leonard Nimoy, the
Spock.
Dr. David talked about was he threw out the word conspiracy or no hallucinatory flu. I thought that was really good. I was like, what? And like he said, he delivered it so well. Like, oh yeah, it's just this. And I was like,
he's convincing Matthew that like the people
He's
that
gaslighting him.
Elizabeth is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, bro,
That's
when everybody
crazy.
else is wrong, so I'm not.
I was like, yeah, I was just crazy. And then like the other line, it's kind of cheesy. Whenever Elizabeth was talking about the plants the second time, when she was freaking out, she's like, dude, their parasites are growing on all the plants. So she started seeing them more on the foliage, like those things
Mhm.
blossoming. And she said, where did these things come from? Outer space? And I was just
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, that is insane. Just the funny idea. What was I had somebody else's dialogue. She's all right. She's better now. Oh, the lady. That was the other thing. Yet you were saying that whenever they planted these people of like, hey, like somebody's not right with these people. There was the guy at the laundromat. There was the lady at the library book signing that was like, oh yeah, no, my husband's great now. Everything is going great. So I just thought like the dialogue, if there was anything else, I thought was really well done, and I think that makes the movie like stand out because it's not just cheesy bad. It's not cheesy bad lines. It's not just bad lines for the sake of bad lines.
So that was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We hope you liked this video. We all enjoyed the movie. You should go ahead, give it a watch yourself. The next episode that we're going to be doing is going to be The Monkey. Very exciting.
We're
We're
at
excited.
A24 or Neon.
It's
Neon.
So it's gonna be good. So it's gonna be good. I know it's
He
gonna be good.
wouldn't have been excited if it was.
I wouldn't have
That's
been.
true.
It's like,
Very
oh.
true.
Stephen King wouldn't have given it the green light if it wasn't.
If it wasn't.
Is this his movie?
It's based off of one of his short stories. Yeah.
Oh.
Of the same name, I believe. So yeah, so stay tuned if you're excited for that like we are. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff, and we really appreciate it. But until then, we hope you have a nice day.